Welcome to Dreamtale Sleep Stories. Tonight's reading is The Sock Detective. Settle into your bed or sofa and let your shoulders, jaw, and eyelids grow heavy. Inhale slowly, 1, 2, 3, and sigh the air away, allowing the day to fade into quiet dark. With every soft inhale, you invite fresh English phrases. With every gentle exhale, stray thoughts drift farther off. Behind my voice flows a gentle theta wave melody, renowned for guiding the mind toward deep relaxation. Soon the music will shift into soothing alpha wave tones, carrying you toward a calm shoreline of dreams. Keep your eyes closed or follow the captions, whichever feels right. Simply receive the rhythm and resonance of the language. Deep in rest, tonight's phrases will take root like seeds, ready to bloom into stronger English skills with the morning light. When you feel settled, hold that unhurried breath and allow yourself to drift into the tale. The Sock Detective begins now, and when the story's final line has faded, the music will linger a little longer, carrying you gently deeper into sleep. The Sock Detective. Oliver was 12 years old and had a very special talent. He could solve mysteries that no one else could solve. He lived with his grandmother in a tall apartment building in the city, and every day brought new puzzles to figure out. The biggest mystery in Oliver's life was something that happened to everyone, but nobody seemed to care about it. Socks disappeared in the laundry room. Not just 1 or 2 socks, but hundreds of them. Oliver had been keeping track for 3 months. And the numbers were shocking. Every week, at least 20 single socks were left behind in the building's laundry room. People would take their clothes out of the washing machines and dryers, but they would leave behind lonely socks with no partners. Oliver couldn't understand why nobody was investigating this obvious crime. "Grandma," Oliver said one morning while eating his breakfast, "don't you think it's strange that so many socks disappear?" His grandmother, Mrs. Chen, smiled as she knitted a new pair of bright yellow socks. "Oh, Oliver, that's just one of life's great mysteries. Socks have been disappearing in laundry rooms since washing machines were invented." "But that's exactly why we need to solve it," Oliver said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Just because something has been happening for a long time doesn't mean we should ignore it." Mrs. Chen smiled as she knitted a new pair of bright yellow socks. Chen looked at her grandson with pride. Oliver had always been different from other children. While his friends played video games, Oliver preferred to observe the world around him and ask questions that adults had stopped asking long ago. That afternoon, Oliver decided to begin his investigation. He took his notebook, a magnifying glass, and a small flashlight down to the basement laundry room. The room was empty except for the humming of the machines and the occasional drip of water from old pipes. Oliver started by examining the washing machines. There were 6 of them, all old and white with small round windows. He checked inside each machine carefully, looking for holes or secret compartments where socks might be hiding. He found nothing unusual. Next, he investigated the dryers. These machines were even more suspicious because most people said that's where socks disappeared. Oliver opened each dryer and crawled inside to examine the drums. The metal was smooth and clean, with no obvious places for socks to escape. But then, in the last dryer on the right, Oliver discovered something interesting. Behind the lint filter, there was a small gap in the wall that he hadn't noticed before. When he shined his flashlight into the gap, he saw something that made his heart race with excitement. There was a tunnel. The tunnel was just big enough for a sock to fit through, and it seemed to go deep into the wall. Oliver tried to reach into it with his hand, but his arm was too big. He needed to find another way to explore this discovery. Oliver ran upstairs to his apartment and grabbed his grandmother's knitting needles and a small mirror that his mother used for applying makeup. He attached the mirror to one of the knitting needles with tape, creating a simple periscope that he could use to see around corners. Back in the laundry room, Oliver carefully inserted his homemade tool into the tunnel behind the dryer. What he saw in the mirror made him gasp with amazement. The tunnel opened into a large room filled with colorful lights and what looked like tiny furniture. "This is impossible," Oliver whispered to himself, but he had learned that the best detectives always followed the evidence, even when it led to impossible places. Oliver spent the next hour trying to figure out how to get into the tunnel. It was too small for him to crawl through, but he was determined to solve this mystery. Finally, he had an idea that was so crazy it might actually work. He ran back upstairs and found his grandmother in her favorite chair, knitting another pair of socks. "Grandma," Oliver said breathlessly, "I need you to make me something very special." Mrs. Chen looked up from her knitting with curiosity. "What kind of something, dear?" "I need a sock that's big enough for me to wear like a sleeping bag," Oliver explained, "and it needs to have a special power that will let me shrink down to sock size." His grandmother raised her eyebrows. "Oliver, that sounds like something from a fairy tale." "I know it sounds crazy," Oliver admitted, "but I've discovered something amazing in the laundry room, and I think the missing socks aren't really missing at all. I think they've found a new home." Mrs. Chen studied her grandson's serious face. She had always known that Oliver was special, and she had learned to trust his unusual ideas. "Well," she said slowly, "my own grandmother once told me stories about magical knitting. She said that if you knit with love and a pure heart, sometimes extraordinary things can happen." That evening, Mrs. Chen worked on the most unusual project of her knitting career. She used yarn that she had been saving for something special, wool that had been dyed with natural colors from flowers and herbs. As she knitted, she told Oliver stories about the old country, where people believed that clothes could carry magic if they were made with the right intentions. The next morning, Oliver found a beautiful sleeping bag-sized sock waiting for him on his bed. It was striped with all the colors of the rainbow, and it felt warm and alive in his hands. "Remember," his grandmother said, as Oliver prepared to return to the laundry room, "magic only works if you believe in it and use it for good purposes." Oliver nodded seriously and put on the magical sock like a costume. As soon as he was completely inside it, he felt a strange tingling sensation all over his body. The world around him began to grow larger and larger. Or maybe he was growing smaller and smaller. Within minutes, Oliver had shrunk down to the perfect size to fit through the tunnel behind the dryer. The tunnel was dark, but not frightening. Oliver could see a bright light at the end, and he crawled toward it with excitement and curiosity. When he emerged from the tunnel, he found himself in the most wonderful place he had ever seen. It was a city built entirely for socks. There were tiny houses made of cotton balls, streets paved with colorful threads, and lampposts that looked like giant safety pins. Hundreds of socks were walking around on their own, living their lives in this secret world. "Welcome to Sockland," called a cheerful voice. Oliver turned around and saw a red sock with white polka dots approaching him. The sock had small button eyes and a smile embroidered in yellow thread. "My name is Polka," the sock said. "We've been waiting for someone like you to find us." "Someone like me?" Oliver asked, still amazed by everything he was seeing. "A detective," explained Polka. "Someone who asks questions and doesn't give up when things seem impossible." Polka led Oliver through the streets of Sockland, introducing him to other sock residents. There was Stripe, a tall sock with blue and white stripes, who worked as the city's mayor. There was Fuzzy, a wool sock who ran the library. There was Athletic, a white sports sock who coached the local soccer team. "But why did you all come here?" Oliver asked. "Don't you miss your partners?" The socks looked at each other sadly. "We didn't choose to come here," Stripe explained. "We were brought here by the sock snatcher." "The sock snatcher?" Oliver repeated. "He's a grumpy old sock who lives in the deepest part of Sockland," Fuzzy said with a shiver. "He used to have a partner, but she was thrown away when she got a hole. Since then, he's been stealing socks from the laundry room and bringing them here so they won't be separated from their partners. He thinks he's helping us," Athletic added, "but many of us want to go back to our humans. We have jobs to do, keeping feet warm, making people feel comfortable, being part of their daily lives." Oliver understood the problem immediately. The sock snatcher meant well, but he was making decisions for others without asking what they wanted. "Can you take me to him?" Oliver asked. The socks exchanged nervous glances. "It's dangerous," Polka warned. "He doesn't like visitors, especially human visitors." "I'm not exactly human right now," Oliver pointed out, looking down at his rainbow-striped sock body. "I'm one of you." The journey to the sock snatcher's lair took them through the oldest part of Sockland. The houses here were made of faded fabrics and worn threads. Everything looked tired and sad, as if the happiness had been drained out of it. At the center of this gloomy neighborhood stood a dark castle made entirely of mismatched socks sewn together. It was an impressive building, but it felt cold and lonely. "He lives in there," Stripe whispered, pointing at the castle with one of his corners. Oliver approached the castle gates with confidence. He had learned that the best way to solve any mystery was to gather all the facts, and that meant talking to everyone involved, even the villain. Sock Snatcher, Oliver called out in his loudest voice. I'm Detective Oliver, and I'm here to talk to you about the missing socks. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the castle gates opened with a loud, creaking sound. A very old, very gray sock emerged from the shadows. He was larger than the other socks, and his fabric was thin and worn from age. A detective? The sock snatcher said in a voice like rustling leaves. I haven't seen a detective in Sockland for many years. I've come to understand your side of the story, Oliver said politely. The other socks told me that you've been bringing them here to protect them from being separated from their partners. The sock snatcher's button eyes grew wide with surprise. He had expected anger or accusations, not understanding. That's right, the old sock said slowly. I've seen too many good socks thrown away just because they lost their partners. I've seen sock families destroyed by careless humans who don't understand how much we care about each other. I think I understand, Oliver said gently. You lost someone special, didn't you? The sock snatcher nodded sadly. Her name was Rosie. She was the most beautiful pink sock you ever saw, with tiny flowers embroidered around her edges. We were a perfect pair for 3 years. Then, one day, she got a small hole in her toe. What happened to her? Oliver asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Our human threw her in the trash, the sock snatcher said, his voice breaking. Just like that. 3 years of keeping feet warm together, and she was thrown away because of one tiny hole that could have been fixed with a needle and thread. Oliver felt tears forming in his button eyes. I'm so sorry. That must have been terrible for you. Since then, the sock snatcher continued, I've been saving as many socks as I can. I bring them here where they're safe, where they can't be separated or thrown away. But, Oliver said carefully, some of the socks here want to go back to their humans. They want to do their job of keeping feet warm, even if it means risking separation. The sock snatcher looked confused. But why would they want to risk that kind of pain? Oliver thought about this question seriously. I think, he said finally, that love always involves some risk. The socks who want to go back understand that they might lose their partners someday, but they also know that the time they spend together is precious and important. And, Oliver added, there are many humans who take good care of their socks. My grandmother, for example, mends holes instead of throwing socks away. She treats socks like treasures. The sock snatcher was quiet for a long time, thinking about Oliver's words. Finally, he spoke again. What do you propose, Detective Oliver? I propose a choice, Oliver said. Let every sock decide for themselves whether they want to stay in Sockland or return to the human world. And for those who choose to return, I'll work with my grandmother to make sure they're properly cared for. You would do that? The sock snatcher asked. Yes, Oliver promised. And I have another idea. What if some of the socks who stay in Sockland could help teach humans how to take better care of their socks? You could be ambassadors between our two worlds. The sock snatcher's worn fabric seemed to brighten a little at this suggestion. Ambassadors? Think about it. Oliver said with growing excitement. "You could help prevent the kind of tragedy that happened to Rosie by teaching humans about proper sock care. You could make sure that socks and humans understand each other better." For the first time in years, the sock snatcher smiled. "Detective Oliver, I think you might be onto something." Word spread quickly through Sockland about the new arrangement. Oliver set up a voting booth in the town square, and every sock came to make their choice. About half of the socks decided to return to the human world, while the other half chose to stay in Sockland and become sock care ambassadors. The sock snatcher, whose real name turned out to be Herbert, was chosen as the first ambassador-in-chief. His job would be to visit laundry rooms around the world and leave tiny notes with sock care instructions for humans to find. When it was time for Oliver to return to his normal size, all the socks in Sockland gathered to say goodbye. They had voted to give him an honorary title, the Great Detective of Sockland, with the special responsibility of helping socks and humans understand each other better. "Will you visit us again?" Polka asked as Oliver prepared to crawl back through the tunnel. "Definitely," Oliver promised. "And I'll bring my grandmother next time. I think she and Herbert would have a lot to talk about." Oliver crawled back through the tunnel and emerged in the laundry room. As soon as he climbed out of his grandmother's magical sock, he began to grow back to his normal size. The first thing he did was gather up all the single socks that had been left behind by other residents of the building. Upstairs, Mrs. Chen was waiting with a cup of hot chocolate and a curious expression. "Well?" she asked. "Did you solve the mystery of the missing socks?" Oliver sat down beside his grandmother and told her the whole amazing story. When he finished, Mrs. Chen smiled and nodded as if magical sock cities were the most natural thing in the world. "I'm proud of you, Oliver," she said. "You didn't just solve a mystery. You helped bring two worlds together." From that day forward, Oliver became the unofficial sock detective of his apartment building. He posted notices in the laundry room about proper sock care, and he started a lost sock reunion service to help single socks find their partners. But most importantly, he learned that the best solutions to any problem usually involve understanding, kindness, and giving everyone involved a choice about their own lives. And sometimes, late at night, Oliver would find tiny notes in the laundry room, written in thread-thin handwriting, sharing sock care tips from his friends in Sockland. The partnership between the human world and Sockland was working perfectly, and not a single sock had gone missing since. The only mystery left for Oliver to solve was why his grandmother's sock drawer seemed to have twice as many socks as it used to have. But that, he decided with a smile, was a mystery he was happy to leave unsolved.